I think you're right. They keep winning the games you're going to win because you got that foundation of goaltending and defense. And then we'll see how they are against the iron, and we'll see if later in the season, if people get tired, if there are limitations. The ebb and flow of the season, there'll be times where it doesn't go as well as it is right now.
Yeah. Well, the ultimate, there is one X factor, and it's the ultimate X factor for this team, and really what has tied everything together is Matt Poitras.
Pucks with Haggs is brought to you by Fanduel, the exclusive wagering partner of the CLNS Media Network.
Welcome to the latest edition of the Pucks with Haggs podcast. As always, I'm your host, Joe Haggerty. You can find my stuff on joehaggerty.substack.com. If you get a premium membership, you'll have everything I write about about hockey and the Bruins sent right to your inbox, and you'll be able to read full, complete articles. A lot of what I have right now is behind a paywall because we're right in the middle of the Bruins season. You can also check out my stuff at Boston Sports Journal. We have Mick Colageo, my longtime friend and colleague, with me. Mick, please let the people know where they can read your stuff.
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at Mick Colageo, as you see it on my screen there. Do they see my screen the way I do with my name on it?
I think they do.
Okay, good. And rinkwrapmc.com.
Good stuff from Mick. He brings years and years, decades even, of knowledge of the Bruins covering the beat, that kind of context to everything that he writes. So he is a must-read at all times. I also want to give him
say centuries, but we know there's only been one.
Or millennia, whatever the case may be. But I also want to give a quick shout out to our sponsors, Fanduel Sportsbook. We're in the middle of NHL season right now. We're coming off the Frozen Frenzy at ESPN, where they had every game known to man playing, and they had Butcher Gross and Weeksy breaking it all down and kind of doing a red zone style thing with hockey last night on ESPN. So now is the time to jump in if you're into the FanDuel. You want to bet a few bucks. New customers get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. Visit fanduel.com/Boston with football and hockey in major swing right now. You're going to want to do that. And also, let's give some love to Factor Meals, America's #1 ready-to-eat meal kit. We love it. It's healthy. Smart meals with around or less than 500 calories per serving, ready in 2 minutes. If you have a busy lifestyle like I do, you just put it in the micro for 2 minutes and it's done, and it's healthy and delicious. Head to factormeals.com/Haggs50 and use code Haggs50 to get 50% off your first box. All right, with the sponsorships out of the way, let's break it down real quick, Mick. First things first, and I wrote about this today in Boston Sports Journal. The Bruins fooled us again. For the second year in a row, we expected them to struggle. We expected the changes or the adversity or whatever they were going through to pack a punch and to knock them down a little bit. A lot of naysayers, prognosticators, whatever you want to, doom and gloomers, whatever you want to call them, we're saying this is going to be the year now with Bergeron and Krejci retired that they're going to miss the playoffs. I certainly thought they'd be a wild card at best. But a lot of people, just like a summer before, were predicting bad things for the Bruins, and we're expecting to see a crash and burn. Instead, we see a 4-0 road trip through California and Chicago, a 6-0-0 start to the season, which is their second best going back to 1937-38. They're definitely doing what we thought they were going to do and what we talked a lot about them doing, which is winning with defense and goaltending. They've allowed 7 goals in 6 games. Linus Ullmark and Jeremy Swayman outstanding. The defense has been outstanding. The offense has been good enough to help them win and be undefeated. Obvious caveat here is they're playing Chicago, San Jose, Anaheim. They've got a bunch of Nashville. They've got a bunch of cream puffs in there to start the season, so that's going to help them get off to a good start too. But look, if you're going to be a playoff team, those are the teams if you beat all of those teams with consistency and all the time, and you get a handful of games wins against the Iron and the better teams, you're going to be a playoff team. That's all they have to do to make the playoffs. So your thoughts on the team, what you've seen so far, the impressions, and if you feel like you were at all wrong about what you thought about this team going into the season now, looking back at the first 6 games.
It's going to sound like a cop out, but it's really more of you're wrong so many times in your life that you realize that you become shy. You get a little gun shy to make predictions. Last year, I wasn't feeling great about it with the injuries at the beginning of the season, but so many X factors turned up roses. And this year, I felt a little more solid because I felt like there's less to think about. But that didn't leave me in a great place. It left me feeling about the Bruins how you felt about them going into the season, which is this is a team that's going to have a tougher Detroit, a tougher Ottawa, a tougher Buffalo, and to hurdle over. And so, but yeah, if you try to just get away from comparing to last year and just say, what is this? It's an excellent goaltending tandem, best in the league last year, will be one of the best this year.
Yep.
Really solid defensive team, team chemistry. They filled it out with sturdy kinds of players, not a lot of X factor kind of players that were hoping, even though he's got a bad knee and he's 35, we're hoping he'll score 50 goals like he did in 1987. Not a lot of that kind of guy. Riemsdyk would be the only guy I would classify that way, and he's been excellent. He's been the guy I've been wrong. So let me be microcosm about this and say that JVR I was wrong about. This guy, now we're only 6 games in, but
he's gonna have to stay in one piece and stay healthy, of course. Like
I just have not seen inspired hockey out of him for a half a dozen years. Yeah. And yet I'm looking at a player right now who seems to me like he's got a new lease on life. And that to me has been inspiring. A lot of the rest of it, I feel like, is pretty much gone the way it should. There's funny little things, though, that happen along the way. One of the things I wrote down for myself, a little note here, during the game, Ryan Donato had the puck, and he tried to back in on Charlie McAvoy down the low right wing corner, and Charlie McAvoy would have none of it. He stuck out his hockey pants, and Charlie McAvoy just, boom, just knocked him right to the ice. Donato gets up, and probably 3 seconds later, takes the puck out of the corner and spins off a Poitras and goes to the net with it. And Poitras got completely schooled in a one-on-one situation by the same guy who seconds earlier was absolutely leveled by McAvoy when he tried to make a body puck protection move on him. Yeah. So, and as great as Poitras' goal was last night, let's remember who he beat on his way down the ice, Corey Perry.
Yeah.
He's basically like, Wayne Cashman circa 83. He's at the very end here, so I don't know if he's got the stick boy.
A lot of grit and balls in Corey Perry's game at this point. That's about all he's got.
That's right. And and in the last year or two, he's had more than I realized he had left. Yeah. But sooner or later, Father Time wins, and we saw a little bit of that last night. So yeah, I like the Bruins. If I just I think you're right. They keep winning the games you're going to win because you got that foundation of goaltending and defense. And then we'll see how they are against the Iron, and we'll see if later in the season, if people get tired, if there are limitations, the ebb and flow of the season, there'll be times where it doesn't go as well as it is right now.
Yeah. Oh, the ultimate, there is one X factor, and it's the ultimate X factor for this team. And really what has tied everything together is Matt Poitras, 19 years old. Can't come out of nowhere in training camp to really show that he can play on this team. I think he has punched his ticket to be on this team all year based on, the way he looked in training camp, of course, and the way he's looked during the season, but also the way he just took it up another level on the West Coast trip production wise, scored 3 goals. Helped them win the game in Los Angeles big time, was a huge factor in that win. And again, last night gives them some breathing room against the Blackhawks with the way he's able to strip Corey Perry, beat him down the ice and score that goal. And, his presence has allowed a lot of different things to happen. His presence has allowed Jim Montgomery to play with the other lines and kind of put things together that he'd like to see. It's allowed him to put together a third line of Charlie Coyle, James Van Riemsdyk, and Trent Frederick that is excellent. That is big, that is physical, that is puck protection, that is going to lean on the other team's defensemen and their players and wear them down. And you saw the goal that they scored to make it 3-0, where all of them were winning battles around the front of the net and just wearing them down. And ultimately, JVR makes a really nice pass to Frederick, and Frederick finally puts it in after he was battling with his guy out in front a little bit. And you start to see the makings of Poitras' ability to play a top 6 center spot and to produce some offense and to bring something out of some other players offensively and the potential that he has. It started to allow Montgomery to play a little bit with his forwards and feel comfortable about putting things together the way they should. and the way they can get back to the depth that they had before. That was really the question I had about these forwards, was what kind of depth are they going to have, especially at the center position, but all over, if they're just relying on, two lines, hopefully to provide some offense, and, not sure what you're going to get out of the third line, especially if Coyle has to play up. And then hopeful that a fourth line that's got a couple of young guys in Lauko and Beecher is going to be able to provide energy and be responsible. And I think what we're seeing now is Poitras' presence has allowed him to put everything together in a way that the Bruins have depth again at the forward position. And they're starting to get back to what they were last year, where not only can they get scoring and offense out of the top two lines, and, they haven't even really, well, they've gotten a ton out of Pasternak, but, Marchand started to get going on this trip, and Zaka scores.
I love how Marchand's playing.
Oh, he's playing great. He's playing like a captain.
Yeah, he's really got it up in his pace, his tempo and intensity of puck touches and how he's playing the game right now and how he's skating. I love what I'm seeing. And if things mess up and things screw up, I'm not worried about early season Marchand right now, because I see the energy. I see him really looking like the guy who was healthy 5 years ago and not the banged up one who needed double labrum. So this is huge, potentially huge for the Bruins, for Marchand to really catch stride as a hockey player and be his elite self again at this age.
And being a leader. I think he's set the tone leadership wise with this team, and he's really helped them. And I thought it was important. Some of the tone that they had at the beginning of the season was, we're not going to talk about the guys that aren't here anymore. We're just going to talk about the guys that are here, and this is our group. And, having that mentality going into the year didn't allow them to dwell on what they didn't have or the guys that retired, and just to focus on what they were doing. And I thought that was a really good statement and move that the leadership group made, saying those things and spreading that message around to start the year. But to your point, he's also backed it up with the way he's played on the ice. That play he made, was it against LA, where he took a big hit against the sideboards to make a pass to set up a goal? I think it was to Pasta. Like, that's a great play. That's a leadership play. That's setting the tone for everybody else that you're going to take a hit to make a play.
He accepted the contact, and he had that incredible ability of his to shield the puck and still make a play off of a hit like that.
Yep. And that sets the tone with everybody, that guess what? If your best player, your captain, is doing that, everybody's expected to do that. And that's winning hockey. And they're starting to get back to that. And just the fact that they're going to, they have some players out here on the ice that are creating things offensively and doing enough. And you kind of thought this might be the case with Pasternak, Marchand, some of the guys they had. They have just enough offense to get by with the great defense and the goaltending that they're going to have. And I don't think
that's their house. Yeah.
I don't think the defense and the goaltending are going away. They are, as we thought, going to win games 3-2, 3-1, 2-1, 1-0. We're going to see a lot of that, I think, this year, unless they really change what they're doing. And I don't think they should at this point, until, an injury happens or something happens where they've got to, change things up, something unforeseen. Because right now, I think they have a winning formula, and I think they're going to win against some pretty good teams, as well as, I'm
looking forward to those games to see how they measure up. And one of the things from last night that kind of struck me is how badly they outshot the Blackhawks. The Bruins have not been a shot volume team, and I think this was cited in the ESPN telecast that the last time the Bruins had this many shots or something was a game that Cassidy coached. They didn't note that Cassidy coached it, but it was the first thing I thought was from the season that Cassidy coached.
Yes.
And he was, as Nick Foligno said, a shot volume coach, whereas
funneling pucks, he used to call it. Funneling pucks.
Right. Bork Neely hockey. It's just kick the crap out of Ron Tugnut. But in this case, it's Montgomery's a possession game. You're looking for the right shot, and you're holding on. It's a little more like Robbie Ftorek had the Bruins playing back 20 years ago. And in this case, for the Bruins to have that many shots, I thought was a byproduct of the fact that they were so relentless. Each line was forechecking the Blackhawks silly, and they were relentless. They were playing like it was a playoff series. They can't do 82 games like that, but it was fun to watch an early season game where they were playing that way and being that dominant on the territorial and the possession, and everything was just adding up to the point that they were out shooting them silly.
Well, and especially when you factor in the context of the game, which is the last game of a super long road trip where they've had multiple time zone changes, you would expect them to have dead legs or to have nothing last night, or be one of the ones that's almost like a kind of a scheduled loss.
Which makes me wonder, and I started thinking about this before we went on, what are they going to do tomorrow?
Right. And
First
tomorrow
home game.
may end up being that game, but I was
judge.
impressed that it didn't happen in Chicago, and that they, to your point, brought out as much as they did, were forechecking and skating as hard and really putting forth the effort like they were. Good to note that Jacob Lauko is going to be okay. Got a scary cut above his eye or around his eye. He sent out a funny tweet today. One of the Lord of the Rings characters with a messed up face, saying this is what I look like this morning. So his sense of humor is intact, and he was laughing about it, as hockey players always do when they have gruesome injuries like that. So it was
pretty scary moment for any player. It's every player's nightmare to suddenly, have your, but in his case, at least he was, had his hand on his face and he was running off the ice because he knew he had been kicked. It's kind of like a heel kick, an accidental heel kick from Dickerson there. And he didn't even see him was behind him, and he kicked backward and like a horse. And I don't know why he did it, but it was like kind of like whatever he was doing in the middle of doing. That was the move he made, and Lauko's face was down there. He had taken a nasty hit, and that would have been worth talking about if this didn't happen.
Yep.
He had just been knocked down pretty hard.
And I always have that vision in my head of the mule kick coming back to get me with the skates when I'm on the ground as a hockey coach putting on the goalie pads for the kids. I always have that nightmare, like, please do not kick back with your leg right now when you're back there, like, getting the pads on. So like that, even for like just a coach putting on the pads, that's like the worst case scenario, nightmare, doomsday scenario to see the skate blade coming at you like that when your face is so close. So I'm glad that Lauko is okay.
Snap into action this NFL season with Fanduel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. That's $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. If you've been thinking about joining Fanduel, there's no better time to get in on the action. The app is so easy to use. There's a wide range of betting options, including spreads, player props, over-unders, and more. So visit FanDuel.com/Boston and kick off the NFL season. Fanduel, official partner of the NFL.
Some fresh news earlier this afternoon, Wednesday afternoon. Ian Mitchell put on waivers by the Bruins. That might be a guy that they lose potentially. We'll see if he passes through and he goes down to Providence. Had a good camp.
That's a good point you make in there. I didn't really think much about that because everybody on waivers has been clearing except for one or two guys, but he's a guy who might not.
Yeah, puck moving defenseman, a guy that's got a little bit of offensive upside, has played some NHL games.
Right, and, he's slightly proven. Yeah.
Yes, so that's the kind of guy. If anybody's looking for a puck mover or anybody is hurting depth-wise because of injuries early in the season, he could get scooped up. And I'm sure that that was a consideration going in. But he also had a little bit of struggles when he'd been in the lineup so far this season. A couple games I think he got in there and he didn't look great. So I understand why they did it. Maybe there was a salary cap component as well.
You think that this is the prelude to? Do you suspect this is the prelude to anything else? Or
I don't. Do you? I mean, I don't. I think this was more roster based than anything else, or performance.
Okay, so right, because you're still. Now wait a second. Who's? I'll have to.
I mean, are you anticipating that Mason Lowry is going to come up or something like that?
Well, I'm wondering if they want to get. I'm wondering if they want to get a look. If they want to just schedule a look at him and say, look, let's just get an early season look and see where you're at. Give you a few NHL games against the real deal, real competition, and see what it looks like. And then we go back down, and not that they're into yo-yoing people on purpose.
But if they're thinking about it, making a trade with one of their other defensemen, and he becomes a mainstay once they make that trade, maybe they do want to get a little look at that before they make that kind of a deal. That's potentially. In the offing or potentially in the thinking. And I certainly wouldn't put that past them, and that you're going to want a little trial balloon to see what it looks like at the NHL level with him before you're going to trade a Grizzly, a forward, somebody that's a big time important part of your defenseman core. You're going to make sure your bases are covered before you do that. But like it would be interesting if they trade somebody away to make room for Lowry. Lowry comes up. Let's say they lose Ian Mitchell on waivers. Now you're talking about like a big hit to your defenseman depth going on, like a 1-2 punch based on the dominoes falling and the moves they're making here. It's going to be interesting.
Well, yeah, and it could be that I'm thinking of maybe a scenario where somebody called Don Sweeney and said, "Hey, listen, we're interested in either Grizz or Forbort,
Right.
one of those two guys." Now, if they're interested in either one of those two guys, then the Bruins need another left shot. So if the left shot, if it's going to be back to Zaboral, or if it's going to be Lowry, to get a look at Lowry and see how he is, and because you got the luxury right now, if you're ever going to get a look at Lowry in the early season, you're 6-0, and you have a chance here right now to integrate him a little bit and see how he looks. Because somebody else is interested in one of your guys, and you want to know what the ramifications are. And so maybe there's something there. I'm just wondering.
Could be. All right. Now, another thing that happened, we're going to get into some mailbag questions right now. And we can address it within the question. We talked about last podcast we had was before Jake DeBrusk got suspended for a game. We were actually talking about how he was disappointment for the first, 2-3 games before we recorded the podcast last week. And then lo and behold, like the next day he got suspended for missing a team meeting, for being late to a team meeting, excuse me.
Yeah.
But here's the mailbag question. And this one's a little direct. This one's a little blunt. Why does Jake DeBrusk's name always come up as being somehow difficult, stupid, etc.? I don't think he's ever been called stupid. And I think he's actually a pretty smart guy. At what point does his off the ice nonsense outweigh his underachievement on the ice? And that's from Don Tuna on Twitter. I don't think he's really. I would not label Jake DeBrusk a problem. I would not label Jake DeBrusk as difficult. I wouldn't put him in any of those categories. I think he's very popular with his teammates. I think they all like him. I think he's a pretty fun-loving guy. I think he's fun to be around. I think his teammates enjoy him being there because he can lighten things up and joke around. But I think there is an element of irresponsibility to him. And if they made it public and suspended him for a game for being late to a team meeting, I am going to say right now that's not the first time he's been late to a team meeting, because I think the last resort is putting it in public and going that discipline route. Maybe this happened a couple times last year. It got swept under the rug. And now this year, with different leadership and, a different tone, and Jim Montgomery, I think, coaching a little differently this year, frankly, with Patrice Bergeron gone, that it's going to be a little bit of a different story, and it's going to be a little stricter as far as the ship that they run. So I think there is a level of irresponsibility to him, and sort of it took him a little bit longer, I think, to mature into the player that he is now than maybe it did for some other players. I like Jake DeBrusk personally. I don't hold anything against him for a trade request because he did not get along with Bruce Cassidy and did not like the situation he was in. That happens all the time. I don't think that's a reflection on him as a person. But I will say, this season was not a great start to a guy that's in a contract year with the Bruins and wants to get a big money, big term deal from them, and certainly going to get one from somebody in the league. If he, even has a half decent season this year, if he gets 25 goals, he's going to get a really good contract. I just don't think it's going to be from the Bruins. And I think some of the issues to start the year, inconsistency wise and missing that team meeting or being late to it, kind of highlight some of the things that maybe the Bruins aren't that comfortable giving them a 6-year huge money deal, and giving them all that money and the responsibility that comes along with that. But they've got to balance that.
A core player investment.
Right. But you got to balance that with how you're going to replace his offense and his goals, because there's obviously a dynamic skater and scorer, and those guys don't grow on trees. So it's an interesting situation.
Some of the best hand eye I've ever seen.
Yeah.
I can't believe how he can reach behind himself while he's really accelerating through the middle of the rink. And you got guys coming at you, want to take you out, and he can knock a puck down out of the air and keep it. And it's like, what the hell it's like a cartoon. And to have that kind of skill, now he's come along so far, and he really won me over last season.
Yeah, me too.
And I was very slow to the party on Jake DeBrusk. I traded him 7 times.
Yeah.
And I didn't know, I very heavily questioned the prior season how it was possible to rescind a trade request and to actually ever be able to undo that. But the Bruins somehow made that happen with him, and then got the best of his career so far after that happened. So, I've been so stupefied by that and so embracing Jake DeBrusk and thinking I was wrong about this guy. It just took him a while, et cetera, that for this to happen now in a contract year, and why did the Bruins go into the year without signing him to begin with? I have a hard time trying to compartmentalize all of this stuff.
Well, because I don't think they have intentions of signing him. That's my own personal opinion. I think this is a Torrey Krug situation where they don't want
Nathan Horton situation.
Yeah, they do not want to give him that huge money long-term deal, and I think they feel like it would be a bad investment. And it's hard for them because I think the players like him with his skill set and his ability to score goals and create offense don't grow on trees. And it's made more difficult by the fact that, to your point, he had a really good season last year and he played tough and did a lot of the things away from the puck that they want him to do. I think he was a much more complete, more consistent player. He was going to score 30 goals if he didn't get hurt in the Winter Classic, where he scored 2 goals in the third period on a broken leg. So I think there are a lot of things that make it a difficult decision for them. But ultimately, I think at the end of the day, maybe some of what's gone on early in the season is he's not sure they want him back. I'm not sure they want him back. And I think there's going to be like a level of awkwardness until it gets resolved one way or the other, or they both just decide like, that's it, and we're not going to talk about it anymore. I think that whole thing creates a delicate situation. And I just don't think DeBrusk is the kind of guy that is going to be able to perform his best if he knows like every move is, could be is his next contract and staying in with the Bruins could be dependent on like every little thing that he's doing. I don't think he's the type of player that will respond positively to that kind of pressure on his shoulders. I think it may go in the other direction. But in the other part of it too is, as I referenced before, he's very popular. He's good buddies with David Pastrnak. He is very popular with a lot of the guys in that room. How unpopular is it going to be with them if he doesn't come back? And how much of a problem are those guys going to have who are very influential players you want to keep happy, players that want him around? How much is it going to ruffle their feathers if they just, wave goodbye to him or don't treat him the right way, don't give him a good offer and kind of lowball him or, don't stonewall him and don't talk to him? All that stuff, I think, is a really interesting scenario that's going to play out.
Yeah, we got to hope it doesn't degenerate into a early 90s wartime players versus owners versus players kind of negotiations that is really just sort of a prelude to a bitter departure and go learn how to yodel. This is
And Don Sweeney's not the go learn how to yodel kind of guy, so I don't think it's ever going to turn.
No, and he's not, and in fact, he would have been gone by now if he was anywhere near close to that.
Right.
So, but you hope that this incident, because even though you allude to the strong possibility that there's much more happened that led to this going public, but if this is an isolated incident, at least on a record, it is that it does not have the power to sabotage their ability to get the best deal possible for him. You would also be trading from a point of weakness if your season was going poorly, but their season's going fantastic. So if you got a deal, if there's something happening here, and whether it's Elias Lindholm or it's whoever else whose name has been in the papers for quite a while here that would interest the Bruins, and things have gone well enough with Zacha that I got to wonder what the Bruins, what they would want to do about it if they knew they were going to trade him, what they would want to get. We know it wouldn't be a goalie and we know it wouldn't be a defenseman. What would it be? Unless it was the right left shot defenseman to be a top 4 guy, solidified the way they did at the deadline with Orlov. What would be that guy? Other than that, everybody would assume center, but right now, we know Poitras all set, and Coyle ain't going anywhere. Question is how do they feel about Zacha?
Yep.
In that position.
Do we like him at center or wing ultimately?
And if you don't like him, if you want another winger, what do you want? You got elite line drivers with Marchand and Pastrnak, and scoring wingers and playmakers, and is this an opportunity to become a more physical team, maybe, but in the top 6 rather than just having your muscle down below.
We do have Factor Meals to help us out. America's #1 ready-to-eat meal kit. When it does get busy, when it does get crazy, when we do need a quick meal, they fuel you up fast with flavorful and nutritious ready-to-eat meals delivered straight to your door. Takes less than 2 minutes to cook them. They're fresh, never frozen. Meals ready in 2 minutes, like I said. They have calorie conscious options, going upscale with some of the things they're offering now, like surf and surf meal options, roasted garlic filet mignon and shrimp and Cajun spiced shrimp and salmon, which is like right in my wheelhouse. This is the kind of stuff I'm all about. So it's got everything for everybody. There's 34 plus chef prepared, dietitian approved weekly options for meals. You can get snacks, you can get breakfast items. Like it's a great deal. So if you want to get Factor meals, go to factormeals.com/Haggs50 and use the code Haggs50 to get 50% off of your first box. It's a great deal. I've tried it. It's fantastic. I recommend it to you. We love these ready to make meal kits, especially when we're on the go with our kids. So one more time, that's factormeals.com/Haggs50 to get 50% off your first box. You won't be sorry if you go to Factor Meals. It gets the Haggs thumbs up seal of approval. Well, then this question is later on. I had it later on, but I'm going to ask it next because it kind of comes right out of that last question. If the Bruins secure a playoff spot by the trade deadline, what are the chances they will try to acquire a number one center for a deep run in the playoffs? And what would they be willing to give up in players and draft picks? And that's from Kirk 19721974. I think it's hard to answer this right now, and I don't think we can intelligently answer it right now because we're going to have to see more of Matt Poitras, see more of Pavel Zacha in a real premium center role on this team. If they continue to play like they're playing right now and continue to go as they're going, and I don't know that they need a number one center. I think that they're okay with what they have. And I think, maybe there'll be other spots they can fortify, or maybe they get another winger to go in the top six that's dynamic, that can score goals. Like, I think you can base it a little more on the specific team and what the need has this year and beyond.
And that doesn't even take injuries into consideration.
Right. And that too, but rather than having blinders on, like we have to trade for a number one center.
No,
I think if they continue as the status quo, and if they continue to play as they are, and those centers that are in the top six spots continue to excel, there is zero reason to go get Elias Lindholm and overpay for him. There is zero reason to overpay and take on Ryan Nugent-Hopkins' contract. There's no reason to get any of these guys. I think they have the answers to the questions right now, but I can't say that definitively 6 games into the season. I need to see a bigger sample size with them in these big spots before I'm ready to go there.
Me too. The only thing that we don't know that would be great to know is what is happening on the phones. Right. What are the calls that are coming into Don Sweeney? Who is asking for what, and what are they dangling? Because there might be opportunities. Sometimes you have an early season opportunity to formulate your team and add a dimension that might be, completely change your trajectory in a subtle way even, but it could do it, and who knows what's there. And to me, knowing that would be that's a crystal ball they actually have. Who knows what's happening right now, what the rumblings are, because if there's ever a time to trade, it's now. The prices are lower. You're in a great position in the standings. You have opportunity to do something to make your team better. Then this is, right now things are about as good as they can get for the Bruins when it comes to trading. Question is what's going on.
Yeah, and as far as pieces they would trade, Jake DeBrusk, we just talked about, I think, given his situation, I think he could, and his value to other teams around the league, he could certainly factor into any trade talks you were going to have. Matt Grzelcyk, I think, is the natural one to trade based on Mason Low-Rise emergence and based on the fact that he's 5'10", 5'9", 170 pounds. And, you want to get bigger on the back end. It's got nothing to do with him as a player. I think he's a premium puck mover. I think he's a very good defenseman, very good defensive defenseman, frankly, for his size, because of his stick and his positioning and, the technical aspects of how he plays defense. But when it comes to playoff time, you can take advantage of players that size on the back end. You just can. They have a hard time staying healthy, and I think defensively you can push them around closer to the net, especially when it gets more physical. So I think those would be two of the natural players that some kind of a bigger deal would be based around if they did indeed go there. Here's an interesting one. Will Kevin Shattenkirk be a 7th player award candidate this year? From Soup Gotta Poop on Twitter.
Wow.
I mean, Shattenkirk strikes me as if he has a solid season, he could definitely get consideration for that. And it seems like it's going a little more it was going for a little while, like towards, and it still does to a degree, towards the young players that emerge. Like Poitras could end up definitely being a seventh player.
He's going to win this thing, and I'm going to be saying all along that it should have been JVR.
Right.
That's how this is going to go. Poitras is going to win it, and I'm going to be sitting there saying it should have been JVR because I didn't expect JVR. The definition of the award is player performs above and beyond what one would normally expect. That was the original definition. TV 38 7th Player Award 1969. Eddie Westfall won the first one, but Tim Thomas won it twice. Billy Guerin won it twice. I mean, there's a ridiculous wins for a second time around. Made no sense, So Poitras, the shiny new toy will definitely get it.
Yeah, if he sticks around and he has a good season, he will end up getting it.
Shattenkirk's exactly what they thought they were going to get. A guy who you want to protect his minutes, you want to protect his matchups, especially his matchups, and then he's going to help you do what he does well, which is
the net. He's been fantastic
and he's
getting
good
his
off
shots
the point,
through.
And he gives you he's like power play insurance. He'll bring stability to a power play that struggles.
But you saw that
unit or not.
You've seen it consistently. He can get a shot through from the point. He finds shooting lanes and he gets the shot pucks to the net, and that helps you create offense 5-on-5. We saw it in the game against Chicago. Pavel Zacha's tapping on the ice saying, "Hey, I'm here, good position, like ready to tip a puck." Shattenkirk gets it right to him. He tips it in, bing, bang, boom. Like, it was a great play. And it was a smart play by two veteran guys that were absolutely on the same wavelength that are starting to get used to playing together and, and create offense the old fashioned way. So, I think he's already started to show his value, even if you also see that times he's going to be taken advantage of just with turnovers and, the defensive zone, some of the stuff traditionally that he struggles a little bit with when he's not in the offensive zone creating.
It was nice to see him jump a player there when Swayman was.
Yes. Yeah. Who was that? I can't remember.
Perry, I think it was Perry. Was it Perry?
Yeah. I think it was Perry. Yes. Perry was crowding Swayman, and then he jumped on him and tackled him. Yes.
Yeah, he wound up on the bottom, but he took one for the team. Good.
He did. And that was a veteran move. Those are like good signs. That stuff, JVR, the way he's playing, like the veterans that are playing the way that they are, I think they realize they're in a pretty good situation here, and we're getting the Bruins are getting their best. All right, thoughts on Barry Melrose's impact on hockey overall, but also, do you think the Hockey Hall of Fame will get him in quicker due to his medical condition? From Louis G. Prod. I mean, I would hope so. I always hope the Hockey Hall of Fame moves with speed and with wisdom and with diligence when it's a situation like it is with Barry Melrose. And I was sad to see that he wasn't going to be part of the ESPN coverage this year because he's so synonymous with that. I'm sad that I'm not going to see him at any of the big national events in his big pinstripe suit, smoking a cigar somewhere with the slick back hair. Like, it became something you look forward to, would see him in a big chair in like a lobby of the rink or the hotel where the All-Star game or the Stanley Cup Finals is going on. And, he's puffing away in a cigar with a big smile on his face, just enjoying himself, and everybody enjoyed his company. And, he was, even when ESPN was the sport whose name you will not mention, hockey was the sport whose name you will not mention on ESPN, he was still the guy that carried the torch there and represented it for all those years, he and Steve Levy. So, I hope everything is going as well as it can for him. And I do hope he gets that honor while he's still around to enjoy it. But just your thoughts on Barry Melrose and his legacy right now.
Yeah, I'm never sure, what the Hockey Hall of Fame, what they're thinking, what they'll do. Rick Middleton. But when it comes to, and Keith Kachuk, but when it comes to, a guy like Barry Melrose, all I remember is when I think of my friends who were closer to him, like Louise Cornetta, all the years she's worked for ESPN. And always had the most wonderful things to say. I just spoke in the last week with the great Cap Raider, who just turned 70. And, I
hope Cap is doing well. He's awesome.
Yeah, he is. He's doing well. And he's actually still doing some coaching, some teaching of goalies and working with teams and squads coming down to Plymouth State and stuff in New Hampshire. But he's very close to Barry, and he's known this for a while. But I didn't, so it's It's not like a brand new diagnosis. This is just
Right.
going public now. And these people love Barry. I didn't know Barry well, but anytime my few encounters with him have been really, really great. And so hockey's a family, and
Yep.
and a lot of people in the family really, in pain when they see somebody like this suffering. And so, God bless the man and his family, and we go from there.
Well said, Mick. That's well said. And, prayers and thoughts to Barry Melrose and his family. Like I said, I hope, things are going as well as they can from him. It's, I'm sure, a difficult time for them, and it's a difficult time for the hockey world. But the good thing is he's a wildly popular guy with tons of friends and tons of people supporting him and rooting for him. And I'm sure he feels that regardless of what's going on with him. So best wishes to Barry Melrose. Thank you very much for the question, too. That was a great question to sort of wrap things up on. Mick, thank you very much for the time. I appreciate you coming on and answering some mailbag questions this week for this Everything is Awesome Bruins team that can't seem to lose. Let's also thank our sponsors, Factor Meals, America's #1 ready-to-eat meal kit, flavor-packed options on the menu, dietitian approved, delicious. Do I have my fact? Oh, yes, here it is. Factor Meals. I'm not only a spokesman, also a client. It's delicious. Go to Factor Meals. Go to factormeals.com/Haggs50 and use code Haggs50 to get 50% off your first box. And then also FanDuel Sportsbook, get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet on the NHL, on the NFL, both in full swing. Major League Baseball playoffs still going on. So there's a lot of things you can bet on, whether it's spreads, player props, over-unders, and so much more. Just go to FanDuel.com/Boston and kick it off right now that hockey and football are in full swing. Mick, thank you very much for joining me this week. I appreciate it, and I'll see you tomorrow night at the Garden.
Yeah, I will find out if this team really cannot lose.
Yes, and we'll see if it's a scheduled loss or not. But for now, thank you very much for listening to the Pucks with Haggs podcast. We'll see you at the rink.